Hi, so today I'm going to be using the yoga tune-up therapy balls to do some work for anyone that's suffering with sciatica, which can be really uncomfortable and not fun. So there are a couple of things to think about after you've done this, which is that you can use the balls to release the tissue, but if you keep going into the same pattern of behavior, you're going to keep putting this hip joint, the bum cheek muscles in a place that's constantly squeezing in on the sciatic nerve. So something just to watch for is when you're seated in your chair or whatever, whichever leg has the sciatic, or maybe both, it's always good to check out both positions. If you tend to sit with the knees splayed open so that you're rotating in your hip joint the whole entire time, you tend to create quite a lot of compression back towards the sciatic nerve. For those of you that are cyclists, just watch when you're cycling that you're not doing the same thing of having a knee that's tracking out, so that you're constantly working into just one part of the bum muscle and effectively contracting it more and more and squeezing down on that space. So with that said, we're going to start with the balls under the feet and then we'll work up through the body. We're going to try and make it quite quick so that it's doable on a regular basis. So you're only going to need one ball to begin with, and place it under your foot somewhere around about toes, and just start to roll backward and forward. Now, initially, you don't need to put a whole heap of pressure down if you're using on brand new yoga tune-up balls. If you've used yours quite a while and they've kind of softened up, or you're using some other kind of rubber ball and it's softened up, then you can put more pressure down. Or they might be soft, but your foot is really tender, in which case go gently. The connective tissue doesn't do too well when you really push into a tight and painful spot. It will often harden, kind of like a protective measure. What I do want you to do, though, is pay attention to where you're rolling your foot. So I often see people, they'll just roll up and down the middle of the foot and they'll kind of ignore all those other areas. But really, you're looking for the places where you're not really in good control of the ball, where it's rolling here, there, and everywhere, and just playing along those lines. Now, just for the sake of keeping the video short, we're going to pause it there. But if you did nothing else but just roll the ball backwards and forwards for 2 minutes per foot, you could begin to make a real difference really quickly. And that's a pretty doable thing, really, 4 minutes in your day, 2 minutes on each foot. So we're just going to bring that foot down to the floor, and then I want you just to close your eyes for a moment and notice how quickly we've made a difference to the sensation of one foot against the floor compared to the other. You might notice how the rolled out foot feels flatter or wider or broader. Maybe even that leg feels a little different already. So then open your eyes and do the same on the other side. Find that backward and forward motion and begin to explore the whole surface area of your foot. So you can never look at one thing in isolation, and the same is true with sciatica. People often go straight to the bum as being the place that needs to be worked on, and for sure there's some validity to working on that. We will get there. But when tissue tightens in one place, it has a knock-on effect throughout the whole entire leg. And knowing that if you sit a lot for your day job, and perhaps you're also a cyclist where there's still more of that sitting position, you're constantly shortening the tissues of your leg by the fact that your ankle, your knee, and your hip joint are held in a bent position for long periods of time. So we're going to start from the feet and work up. Okay, so again, if you had plenty of time, I would pause the video and roll out the feet for at least 2 minutes. If you can do a little bit longer, 3 or 4, that would be great. But 2 would be a real good one to set the timer for, to make a big difference on. So then you're going to bring the ball back under the ball of one foot. So the heel is down toward the floor or on the floor if you can get it there. wrap the toes around the ball. And the first thing I want you to notice is whether your toes are kind of hooking in and bunching on each other. So if that's the case, it might be worth getting down and seeing if you can separate out the toes. Now, if getting down is an issue because the sciatica is painful, then skip it out, but make a note of that. And maybe next time, wedge some little bits of cotton wool or toilet paper or tissue or something between each toe to create some space. I can't believe I just said that live, but you know, needs must. So you're going to wrap the toes round, and now you're going to look at the leg that's on the ball. You do not want to bend the knee, and I want you to place your hand on the front of your thigh bone. Can you turn that bone out to the side and then in? So you should feel this surface area of the thigh bone rotate outward, rotate inward. What I need you to be really sure of is that the pelvis stays still. So it's not this motion where you're swinging the pelvis around, but we're trying to really get the thigh bone to move in the hip socket. So remember how I said one of the things that can irritate the sciatic nerve is permanently having a leg that's in an outward rotation. So we're going to play first with seeing if we can get the movement backwards and forwards restored back in. At the same time, the knee and the ankle are going to have to follow the command of the hip joint. So we get a double whammy of opening up all these joints at the same motion. Now, can you move your foot and put your heel up on top of the ball and the toes and the ball of the foot down? Bend your knee and bring a little bit of weight forward and down. Now, can you do the same thing? Can you rotate that thigh bone inward and outward? So the ball moves from one side of your heel to the other, and you want a tolerable pressure down onto it. You could also play with snaking the foot forward. So eventually the ball comes out at the back of the heel, and then start to snake it forward towards the front of the heel. Alrighty, and then we'll let that release. Go on over to the other foot. So put it under the ball of the foot, the heel down toward the floor. Now, if you can't get your heel down on the floor, we know right away that some of that tissue on the back of the leg is pulled really tight, or the shin is really tight, one or the other of those. So right away, we know there's some work to be done there. Now you're going to wrap the toes over the ball, and again, you want to look to see, can you space them out, whether you can just stretch them out or whether you need to get down and put something between them. Keeping the legs straight, now rotate the thigh bone inward and outward. And if you have a stiff ankle, you're going to try to do the movement at the knee. So if you experience any pain in the knee, anything that's kind of niggly and just doesn't feel good, stop. Reduce the range of motion. We're not looking to push the ankle around from the knee joint. We want to make sure that we really get this motion happening up inside the hip joint, that you can feel the front of that thigh bone moving out and moving in. Now bring the ball under your heel, bend your knee, put a little bit of weight down into it, and now turn the leg in and out again. So if I move to the side, the ball is zigzagging from one side of your heel towards the other side of your heel. All right, and then let that release completely. Okay, so from here, you're going to take both balls and come down to the floor. When you lie on your back, you want to put a ball in the middle of each bum cheek. And if you imagine your bum cheeks like donuts, you're going to put a ball in the middle of each donut. Now, just on the basis of keeping this video short and sweet, because I'm not good at that, we're going to take a ball under each bum cheek, but you could definitely do one ball at a time. I wouldn't do only the bum cheek of the leg that hurts. I would definitely make sure that you do both, because sometimes the leg that hurts is the victim of what's going on the other side. So we need to just make sure we address everything. So now you're just going to slide your hips from side to side. So the balls are moving right across the tissue of your bum cheek. And it just happens that the balls periodically have to be reset for sure. So don't worry about that. You'll just have to keep going in and putting them back. But what I would do is then move them to a new area. So every time you need to recite them, begin to move them northwards up towards the top of the pelvis so that we can cover a whole surface area pretty quickly. And then what you could do during the day when you're sitting in the chair is just to take a ball or both and put them underneath your bum cheeks and just sit on them for a few seconds and then move them to a new spot, just so that you're not always compressing the same place continuously. Let the balls go in and put some compression into other places, release off the one that's constantly being pulled around. Okay, now take one ball out, leave one ball in, and again go to that kind of middle of the bum cheek place. Now, if when you settle down on the ball, it feels intensely uncomfortable, there's like tingly pain, then you might be too close to the sciatic nerve. So move the ball north, south, east, west, doesn't really matter, but just come away from that. So on the leg that's on the ball, I want you to straighten the leg and bend the leg. So just bring the knee towards the chest and straighten the leg out. So just a few times, and it doesn't matter the angle. If this is too low for your leg, then straighten the leg more upward. Doesn't make any difference. You just want to get the muscles working against the compression of the ball. Okay, now bend the knee and set the foot down on the floor. Straighten out the leg that isn't on the ball, and the leg that is on the ball, let the knee come inward and outward, pretty much like we practiced in standing. All right, and then lastly, bring this leg up. Put your hand on your knee and just circle the leg around. Now again, if you have time to stay here, I would move the ball around 4 or 5 places and just repeat any one of these techniques. You could just shift it to a new spot, only do the circles, few here, only do the stretch and the bend, only do the in and the out. I'm just going to give you a few options to play with. So then ease the ball out and straighten out the leg of the side you've just worked on. And notice again the release in the tissue. So for me, I can feel that this leg feels substantially longer, and it definitely feels like this side of my pelvis is more dropped down than the other side. So then take the ball, place it under the other bum cheek. So again, if you think of trying to find a central point to begin with, and then just let yourself sink down onto it. So you want to spend a moment or two making sure that you're not on that point that the sciatic nerve passes, so you're not near the piriformis where it can feel quite tingly and uncomfortable. If you have it, you'll know exactly what I mean. So you just want to move the ball away from that. Okay, so once you have that, then let the legs straighten and bend. And again, at whatever height is comfortable for you, maybe you even keep the foot on the floor and you just slide the leg outward, inward. There's nothing says your leg has to go exactly to straight or exactly to a deep bend. We just want some movement in there so that you're pinning some of these tissues down. Stand that foot down, take the other leg out to straight, and now take the ball knee inward and outward. Just lazy, easy, but knowing that potentially if you're walking around or sitting around with your leg turned out all the time, that's not so much the movement you want to work on as being able to bring the knee across towards the other side. And then bring your knee of the leg that's resting on the floor, bring that up. Bring the ball knee into you, place your hand on the knee and circle the leg around. And then reverse it. All right, now take the ball out, and the last place we're going to go is to the back of the calf. So when you sit up, just make sure you turn onto one side to come up to sitting. Now, if you're new to working on these balls, I would definitely put both inside the bag. and then do it up tight. If you're not, you've done a lot of this kind of work, you could use just one ball for sure. So you're going to place the back of your calf onto the ball or balls, and then cross the other leg on top. Pause there and just let the legs go heavy first and foremost. So if it's too intense to have this second leg over the top, just stand it off to one side for sure. And then from here, begin to rotate that underneath leg that's on the ball. Turn the knee a little outward, a little inward. So you're coming onto the outside ball, the inside ball. And again, if that's too intense, take off the second leg and just see if you can put a little bend and a little straighten in the leg that's on the ball. So it's a really small roll. We're probably talking like millimeters. If you wanted more, then you could put the balls up on a couple of books or a block, and then you'll get a little bit more range of motion. But it's not really necessary to work a big swathe of tissues. It's usually more than enough. All right, now push the balls down a little bit more. Go more towards the bottom of the calf. Try not to go on the ankle. For now, we'll just stick in the safe zone. And again, you can put the other leg on top or not. Point the foot of the ball leg and then flex it back to you. Then circle the ankle around a few times one way, a few times the other way. And let it release. And then go ahead, do the same thing on the other side. Take the balls across. Try to find mid-calf first, kind of the bulk of the muscle. And then let the leg rest down onto the balls or ball. And then your choice, whether you want more compression, the second leg comes on top. Less compression, take it off for sure. And then roll the leg a little inward, a little outward. There's definitely some tender spots on this one for sure. And you could do a little bend and straighten of the knee, teeny tiny, just to get the balls rolling. And then kick the ball down a little bit further towards the bottom of the calf. And again, you have all those options for increasing the pressure. Circle the underneath foot around and then reverse it, and notice whether you can circle the foot. If it's a really stiff ankle, well, who knows what came first, chicken or egg, but the two will be interplaying somewhere down the line. And then point and flex. Great. And then kick the ball out, let both legs come on out to straight. And that's pretty much you done. I would recommend doing this every other day. You definitely want to let the tissue just adapt and stretch to the pressures that you're putting into it. See how you go with it.